Episode 1. The Truth Investigation. The Harrison household, Saturday morning, suburb of Boston. Cast this episode. Lucas. Chloe. Maya. Lucas had one mission Saturday morning: find out who ate the last slice of his birthday cake. He'd been saving it. He texted Maya immediately. Okay, psychology girl, I need you to look into this. Maya arrived in 20 minutes, notepad in hand, already in full detective mode. She started going through the fridge evidence: an empty plate, a fork left behind, a smear of frosting near the counter. Then she sat down to go over Lucas's account of the previous night, asking him to read over his own text thread to see if he'd offered the cake to anyone. I didn't, Lucas said firmly. I looked over every message. 0 cake offers. Chloe walked in, scrolling her phone. Flick through my stories if you want proof I was at Jen's last night. Literally 100 photos. Maya chose to look through them anyway. That's when she came across it: one photo, 11:47 p.m., Chloe at home, in the kitchen, fork in hand. Chloe froze. Okay, but look over that photo before you judge me. I already did, said Maya calmly. And I can make out the chocolate frosting on your thumb. Lucas stared at his sister. I see through your whole alibi. Chloe shrugged. I read into your passive-aggressive cake saving as an invitation. How did that work out for you? Deliciously. Maya came to her professional conclusion. This was a crime of opportunity. And honestly, you should have labeled it. Lucas stared at the ceiling. Sometimes you just can't win, even when you check over every detail. Episode 2. Nowhere to Run. The Mall's Saturday afternoon, Greater Boston area. Cast this episode. Lucas. Marcus. Robert. Ethan. Lucas told his dad he was staying home to study. Then he decided to go out with Marcus instead, just a quick trip to the mall. No big deal. He'd come back before dinner, his dad would never know, and he'd get away with the whole thing easily. You should stay away from that food court pizza, Marcus warned as they set off from the parking lot. Last time I ate there I couldn't move over from the bathroom for an hour. Ethan had come along reluctantly, headphones around his neck. I'm just here because you promised GameStop. They were barely inside when Lucas ran into someone near the entrance. He looked up. It was his dad, shopping cart, reading glasses, completely unbothered. Robert stared at his son. I thought you were studying. Yeah, I just needed to drop off something for Ethan. Said Ethan, slowly falling over his own excuse. He did. He dropped it. It's dropped. Marcus had already taken off toward the food court without a word. Robert watched him go. Smart kid. Then he looked back at Lucas. Don't run away from responsibility, son. It always turns up eventually. He pushed his cart forward. Now come over here and help me find the right light bulbs. You showed up, might as well make it useful. Lucas looked at Ethan. Ethan kept away from eye contact entirely. He did not go along with this willingly. But here he was bumping into consequences, banging into karma, and holding a pack of 60-watt LED bulbs on a Saturday afternoon. Episode 3. The Reality Check. Harrison kitchen plus Marcus's car, Sunday morning, Greater Boston. Cast this episode. Lucas. Marcus. Maya. Linda. Lucas had bombed his first internship interview. Not badly, catastrophically. He came home, dropped onto the kitchen stool, and stared at the wall while his mom quietly made coffee. You need to wake up to something, Linda said, sliding him a mug. The world doesn't look up to potential. It rewards people who actually show up prepared. Lucas didn't answer. He was waiting for the embarrassment to wear off. It wasn't. Marcus called 10 minutes later, already in fix-it mode. Bro, get over it. One interview. You'll bounce back. I bombed my first pitch to 3 investors. Completely tanked it, and I just built up a better deck and went again. That's not the same thing. It literally is. You gotta pick up the pieces and move. Let the old version of you phase out and phase in someone who preps. Maya texted one word: grief. Then a follow-up: let it sink in for 1 hour. Then we fix it. That was oddly helpful. By afternoon, Lucas was actually starting to catch on. He'd gone in without researching the company, talked too much about himself, failed to take in what the interviewer was actually asking. Classic rookie mistakes he should have outgrown. The painful part? Maya said later over the phone. You already know how to do this. You just don't look ahead until something blows up in your face. Lucas sighed. Is that a psychology observation or a personal attack? Yes, she said, and hung up. Episode 4. The Ask Out Incident. Campus Cafe plus Harrison Living Room, Thursday evening, Boston. Cast this episode. Lucas. Marcus. Maya. Chloe. Lucas had been meaning to ask Jess from his media ethics class out for 3 weeks. He'd been hanging around the campus cafe every Tuesday and Thursday, pretending to study, waiting for the right moment. Marcus had zero patience for this. Stop messing around and just do it, Marcus said, spinning his coffee cup. You've been fooling around with this plan long enough. We literally talked over every scenario last week. I need to get on with her first. We've barely spoken. Then invite her over to study. Or invite her out for coffee. You're already in a coffee shop. Lucas. You are literally holding coffee right now. Lucas stuck around another 40 minutes. Then Jess packed up to leave. He finally walked over, showed her around the new library study app their class needed, the smoothest excuse he could manufacture on the spot, and casually mentioned a group hangout Friday night. She said maybe. She'd call him back. Marcus, that's a soft yes. That evening, Lucas invited Maya in to debrief the whole thing. Maya listened, then turned to Chloe, who had wandered downstairs. Chloe didn't even look up from her phone. She said, maybe, and I'll ring you back. That's not a soft yes. That's a soft escape hatch. I don't stand for that interpretation, Lucas said. You don't have to, Chloe said. See you around. Big bro, look after your feelings. She walked back upstairs. Maya patted his arm. She's not wrong. But she's also not entirely right. Text Jess tomorrow. Go out on a limb. Lucas stared at the ceiling. Being looked after by a 17-year-old and a psychology student was somehow worse than the rejection itself. Episode 5. The Pitch. Marcus's apartment, Wednesday night, Allston, Boston. Cast this episode. Lucas. Marcus. Ethan. Maya. Marcus had an idea. Of course he did. This one involved a campus podcast network, a sponsorship deck, and somehow Lucas as the face of the whole operation. Okay, let me take you through the concept, Marcus said, pulling up a slide deck that looked like it had been made in 45 minutes. It had been made in 45 minutes. The idea came up when I was listening to 3 different college podcasts and realized they all sound exactly the same. We do it differently. Lucas, you put across ideas in a way people actually connect with. You know how to put a message over without sounding like a press release. That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me, Lucas said. What's the catch? We need to go through the full launch plan tonight. All of it. Ethan looked up from his laptop. This calls for an actual business structure, not just vibes and a logo. I was going to bring up the LLC question, Marcus said, slightly defensive. When? Ethan asked. Slide 11 is literally just a photo of a microphone. Maya had been quiet. Can I speak up for a second? Everyone looked at her. Lucas, do you actually want this? Because Marcus can talk over a plan all night, but if you're not genuinely in, no amount of slide decks fixes that. Lucas looked at the microphone photo on slide 11. Yeah, he said slowly. Actually, yeah. I think I do. Marcus pumped his fist. Ethan closed his laptop and reopened it on a new document titled Actual Plan. Maya smiled like she already knew. Episode 6. Launch Day Chaos. Campus Media Room plus Marcus's car Friday, Boston University. Cast this episode. Lucas. Marcus. Ethan. Maya. Launch day for the podcast. Ethan had spent 2 weeks helping set up the recording system. Marcus had put forward a whole monetization plan. Lucas had rehearsed his intro exactly once last night in the shower. At 9 a.m., the campus media room server shut down. Just like that. Completely dead. Ethan. Marcus's voice was very calm. Too calm. I'm on it. Ethan didn't look up. Someone took over the shared server allocation. IT is cracking down on unauthorized studio bookings this semester. We're flagged. So we just fall through? Lucas asked. Not if we move fast. Ethan started typing. I can bring this off, but I need Marcus to hand over his personal hotspot right now and stop asking questions. Marcus hesitated, then gave in. Hotspot surrendered. Meanwhile, Lucas was 3 seconds from suggesting they put the whole launch back a week. Maya saw his face and cut him off immediately. Don't you dare put this off. We are not giving up on launch day because of a server. I wasn't. You absolutely were. Lucas chose to go through with it. He held on to his notes, kept on breathing, and somehow held down his nerves through the entire first episode. When it was over, Marcus immediately wanted to take up episode 2 planning. Ethan was already drafting a backup server proposal. Maya just watched Lucas exhale for about 45 seconds straight. Did it come off? Lucas finally asked. She smiled. Yeah, it actually did. Episode 7. The Great Garage Cleanout. Harrison Garage, Saturday morning, suburb of Boston. Cast this episode. Lucas, Chloe, Robert, Linda. Linda had been threatening a garage cleanout since March. Saturday arrived, and so did her clipboard. We are going to clear out every corner, sort out what stays, and tidy up this entire space before lunch. She looked at Lucas and Chloe. No negotiation. Robert was already in full engineer mode, studying the chaos like a network diagram. First we divide up the zones. Tools stay left. Holiday stuff goes right. Everything else, he held up a cracked leaf blower, we ask whether it still sparks joy. Dad, please never say that again, said Chloe. Lucas had been assigned the shelving unit. It was loaded down with 17 years of Harrison family miscellany old paint cans that had completely used up their useful life, a box of cables nobody could identify, and one single roller skate. He started hauling things out, already feeling the morning wear him down. Can I throw away this? He called, holding up a trophy shaped like a fish. That's your 3rd grade spelling bee award, Linda said without turning around. So, yes. Absolutely not. Put it away in the memory box. Chloe was assigned the pantry overflow. She had to cut down on the duplicate kitchen appliances Linda kept buying, just in case. She found 3 rice cookers. Cutting down was going to require therapy. Robert, meanwhile, tried to put together a shelving unit he'd broken up 2 years ago, insisting he could still sort it out. He ran out of bolts on step 4. By noon, the garage was half cleared up, the truck was loaded up for donation, and the memory box was dangerously filled up with things nobody actually wanted but couldn't bring themselves to let go. Linda surveyed the result. Good enough. She paused. Don't let that weigh you down, Robert, the shelf thing. It was already worn down before you touched it. Robert looked at the shelf. I could have cut down the warped plank and locked the whole thing away in the back corner. Or, said Chloe, already walking inside, we could tear ourselves away from this garage and get lunch. Nobody argued with that. Episode 8. The Boiling Point. Campus plus Harrison living room, Tuesday evening, Boston. Cast this episode. Lucas, Marcus, Maya, Chloe. The podcast's 3rd episode had just dropped, and Marcus had changed the intro music without telling Lucas. Again. Lucas found out at the worst possible moment. He ran into Jess outside the library. She said she'd listened, and then asked why the vibe felt off. Lucas smiled through it. He bit back everything he actually wanted to say, and told her it was a creative experiment. By the time he got home, the whole thing had started to boil over. He called Marcus. Marcus launched into an explanation before Lucas could even finish his first sentence. New direction, broader audience. The old music was scaring away potential sponsors. And it was all very confident and very Marcus, and Lucas had genuinely had enough. You keep pushing in on decisions that aren't yours to make, Lucas said. Flat. No yelling. Which was somehow worse. Silence on the line. Maya had been sitting on the couch the whole time, pretending to read. She looked up. That needed to happen. He's going to be weird about it now, Lucas said. It'll blow over. Marcus doesn't hold grudges, he's too busy having new ideas. She paused. But don't let him burst into the next episode planning session and steamroll you again. Set the boundary now, while the moment's fresh. Chloe wandered in from the hallway. Did you finally tell Marcus off? Kind of. She nodded slowly. Took you 3 episodes. She grabbed a snack and left. Lucas stared at the ceiling. Chloe's approval felt oddly more meaningful than he expected. Episode 9. The numbers don't lie. Marcus's apartment, Sunday afternoon, Allston, Boston. Cast this episode. Lucas. Marcus. Ethan. Maya. 847. Episode 1 plays. 1.2K. Episode 2 plays. 2.4K. Episode 3 plays. 4 weeks in. Marcus had a spreadsheet. Of course he did. Look at this. He spun his laptop around. Episode 3 had 2.4 thousand plays. This thing is actually taking off. Lucas stared at the numbers. Genuinely stunned. He'd spent 3 weeks convinced nothing was going to pan out, that the whole project would quietly fall through like every half-finished idea Marcus had ever had. But here were the numbers, sitting there, not lying. The boundary conversation from last week, Maya said, nodding at Lucas. That paid off. Episode 3 had your voice all the way through. No weird detours. Ethan pulled up the listener retention graph without being asked. Drop-off rate went down 40%. People are actually finishing the episodes now. He paused. Whatever you did differently, it worked out. Marcus leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, wearing the particular expression of someone who wants credit, but also knows when to stay quiet. He lasted about 4 seconds. I'm just saying, I always believed we could bring this off. You changed the intro music without telling me, Lucas said. And then you fixed it. And it came off great. That's called collaboration. Ethan looked at Maya. Maya looked at the ceiling. Lucas shook his head slowly. But he was smiling. Because whatever it was, tension, arguments, one rogue intro music decision, it had all turned out better than he'd honestly expected. Some things just do. Episode 10. The Dinner Table Debate. Harrison Dining Room, Sunday dinner, suburb of Boston. Cast this episode. Lucas. Chloe. Robert. Linda. It started, as most Harrison family arguments do, completely by accident. Chloe mentioned she was thinking about skipping pre-med and applying to film school instead. She said it casually, between bites of pasta, like it wasn't a grenade. Robert set down his fork. I don't go in for the idea of changing direction this late in senior year. I'm not asking you to buy into it, Dad. I'm telling you what I'm thinking. Linda, who could do with one peaceful Sunday dinner, looked at the ceiling. Chloe, what does film school actually mean to you? Because you live for your biology lab every Thursday, you told me that yourself. I live for the editing suite too. People contain multitudes, Mom. Lucas, who had been quietly rooting for Chloe to hold her ground, made the mistake of speaking. I say go for it. I didn't go along with everyone's expectations when I chose communications, and it worked out. Robert turned to him. You are not the example I would choose here, Lucas. I stand for what I believe in. You stood in this kitchen for 20 minutes last week unable to decide between 2 types of cereal. Chloe was dying for someone to change the subject. Nobody did. Linda finally put her hand flat on the table, the universal Harrison signal for enough. Nobody looks down on anybody's choices at this table. And nobody goes for the easy option just because it's safe either. She looked at Chloe. You have time. Think it through properly. Robert picked his fork back up. I look up to people who think before they leap. Dad, said Chloe. That was almost a compliment. Almost, he agreed, and reached for more pasta. Episode 11. The Yearbook Problem. Harrison Living Room, Thursday night, suburb of Boston. Cast this episode. Lucas. Chloe. Robert. Linda. Chloe had been asked to write her senior yearbook quote by Friday. She'd been staring at a blank notes app for 3 days. Just go back to something that actually meant something to you, Lucas said from the couch, not looking up from his laptop. First day of high school. Something like that. That's terrible advice. You asked. I didn't, actually. Linda came in carrying a box she'd pulled from the hall closet, old photo albums, Chloe's middle school journals, A ribbon from a science fair. Things designed to bring back the exact kind of feeling yearbook quotes are supposed to capture. Chloe flipped through one of the journals and immediately tried to close it. Too late. Lucas had already seen the page. Is that a drawing of a horse wearing a graduation cap? I will take back every nice thing I have ever said about you. Robert appeared in the doorway. He'd missed the yearbook context entirely, but sensed an opportunity. You know, when I look back on my senior year, the thing I remember most isn't the quote. It's who showed up for me. He paused. Also, I had a great quote. To infinity and beyond. Because I was always tired. Everyone stared at him. Dad, said Chloe carefully. Please never go back to that joke. Later, after Robert had been gently redirected to the kitchen, Chloe found something, a note she'd written to herself in 8th grade about wanting to make things that made people feel less alone. She read it twice. Lucas watched her face. That's it, isn't it? She didn't answer right away. She was still looking back on the girl who wrote it, trying to figure out how much of her was still in the room. Linda sat down next to her quietly. The good ones always come back to you when you need them. She nodded at the note. Write something true. Chloe took a photo of the note. Then she texted her yearbook editor. Give me until tomorrow morning. The editor called back in 30 seconds to say that was fine, and also please stop changing your submission. Chloe had changed it 4 times already. She would absolutely bounce back from the deadline pressure. Probably. She got back to the blank page, note beside her, and finally started writing something she actually meant. Episode 12. The Restructure. Campus Coffee Shop, Wednesday afternoon, Boston University. Cast this episode. Lucas. Marcus. Ethan. Maya. The podcast had hit 5,000 total plays. Marcus celebrated by printing an org chart. Right now we're made up of 3 people doing 6 jobs, he said, spreading it across the table like a general presenting a battle plan. That's not sustainable. We need to set up a proper structure. Ethan studied the chart. You've listed yourself as CEO, CFO, and head of growth. That's one person with 3 titles. That's called leadership. How did this org chart even come about? Lucas asked. A vision came up at 2 in the morning and I ran with it. Maya pulled the paper closer. Okay, but what does this actually make for in terms of day-to-day? Who does what, practically speaking? That was the real question. And when they started breaking it down, the answer wasn't pretty. The podcast's workflow broke down into about 14 micro-tasks nobody had officially claimed. Editing, scheduling, social media, guest outreach, sound mixing, it had all just quietly built up on Lucas's plate by default. I didn't realize how much of this I make up on the fly every week, Lucas said, not angry, just genuinely tired. Maya nodded slowly. That's how burnout comes about. Not dramatically. Just gradually. Ethan was already typing. I'll take sound and scheduling. It's systematic. I can automate half of it. He didn't look up. Marcus makes for a good front-facing person. Put him on sponsorships and guest pitching. Keep him away from the edit bay. Marcus opened his mouth. Closed it. The org chart had not predicted this outcome. When the new structure finally came out on paper, 4 roles, clearly divided, nobody with 3 titles, it was so obvious that nobody said anything for a moment. We should have set this up in week 1, Lucas said. We weren't ready in week 1, Maya said. You have to build up enough chaos before you know what structure you actually need. Marcus took back his org chart and started crossing out 2 of his own titles. Nobody mentioned that it took him a while. Episode 13. The worst week to start anything. Library plus campus hallway, Monday morning, Boston University. Cast this episode. Lucas. Marcus. Ethan. Chloe. It was the first Monday of the new semester, which meant everyone had approximately 72 hours before the motivation evaporated entirely. Marcus had already started up a group chat called Q2 Domination and sent 11 messages before 8 a.m. His plan: branch out the podcast into a YouTube channel, a newsletter, and somehow a live event by April. We need to set about building an audience beyond campus, he announced in the library, loud enough that 3 strangers looked up. I want to take on 2 student contributors by end of month. Writers, editors, doesn't matter. It's Monday, Lucas said. Exactly. Perfect time to set out with a plan. Ethan, who had started out the morning intending to quietly fix a bug in the podcast RSS feed, now found himself being handed a content calendar. He accepted it with the expression of a man watching a storm roll in from a distance. Meanwhile, Lucas had his own problem, a media law midterm in 3 weeks with 4 chapters he hadn't opened. He needed to get down to studying before the podcast expansion took over every available hour. He set up a study block in his calendar. Then moved it again. Chloe texted from high school. SAT prep tip. Contract law always comes up in the reading section. Just FYI. Lucas stared at his phone. His 17-year-old sister was out prepping him for his own college exam. Marcus was still talking. And once we dive into the YouTube side, the growth flywheel just. Marcus. Lucas put his phone down. I will take on one new thing this semester. 1. The newsletter. That's it. Marcus considered this for about 2 seconds. Fine. But I'm branching out the Instagram myself. Ethan closed the content calendar. I'll believe the YouTube channel when I see a camera. Nobody bought a camera. But Lucas finally got down to chapter 1 that afternoon, which, for him, was practically a sprint. Episode 14. The Party That Wasn't. Marcus burst into Lucas's dorm room with his signature Chaos Herald grin. Bro, we're throwing a rooftop party Saturday. 50 people, speakers, the whole thing. Lucas looked up from his laptop. Marcus, last time you said the whole thing, Ethan had to explain to campus security why there was a fog machine in the elevator. That was one incident. We need to wrap up the planning tonight, Marcus pressed on, or the momentum's gonna fizzle out like your motivation to go to the gym. Lucas winced. Fair. By Thursday, however, reality hit. The rooftop permit fell through. Marcus called, voice deflated. We gotta call off the party. Shocking, Lucas said, zero shock in his voice. I was this close. I just need to finish off the permit application and resubmit. Marcus. Give up. It's done. I can't just give up. You packed up your ambition and left it at the permit office, man. Let it go. That Saturday, the 4 of them sat on Lucas's dorm floor, polishing off 2 large pizzas, watching a terrible movie, slowly winding down after a brutal exam week. Marcus had even broken off his side negotiation with the building's janitor, a plan nobody had approved. This is actually nice, Maya said, stealing the last breadstick. See? Ethan said quietly, not looking up from his switch. Controlled failure is still an outcome. Marcus stared at the ceiling. I hate that you're right. Lucas cut off the lights and turned up the movie volume. Some parties you throw. Some parties you become. Episode 15. The Group Project from Hell. Professor Harmon's syllabus was clear, a full multimedia campaign for team members due in 3 weeks. What it didn't say was that Lucas would end up carrying 3 passengers. Okay, Lucas said, spreading notes across the library table. We need to pull together on this or we're cooked. Marcus was already on his phone. I'm working on my section. The brand strategy angle. You typed 4 words and changed the font twice, Ethan noted, not looking up. Font matters, Ethan. Maya leaned in. Lucas, we need to follow up with the professor about the presentation format. You said you'd email her Monday. I'll chase up that email today, Lucas said, with the energy of someone who absolutely would not. You can't just keep to your own little corner and ignore the shared doc, Chloe said from across the table. She'd tagged along to study, which meant listening and judging. The sections have to go together, or it looks like 4 different projects stapled into one sad PDF. She's 17 and she's right, Maya said flatly. Lucas groaned. Fine. Ethan, can you help me build on the research we already have? Marcus, stick at the brand deck. Actually stick at it. We need to move up our internal deadline to Thursday. Thursday? Marcus looked personally offended. If we work towards a Thursday draft, we have buffer time. Or, Marcus offered, we carry on at this pace, panic Sunday night, and somehow still turn in something decent. Everyone stared at him. Thursday works, he said. Lucas kept up a determined nod, fully aware Thursday was also probably a lie. Episode 16, The Internship That Almost Wasn't. Lucas had spent 3 weeks preparing for his media internship interview at a Boston digital agency. 3 weeks of mock interviews, revised resumes, and Maya drilling him with questions at 11 p.m. It was going to pay off. Except he screwed up the date. The interview was Thursday. Lucas showed up Friday. I muddled up the calendar, he told Maya over the phone from the agency lobby, voice barely above a whisper. Lucas. I know. He didn't leave. Instead, he walked up to the receptionist, explained the mix-up with his most disarming smile, and asked if anyone could spare 15 minutes. Somehow, through sheer audacity and a surprisingly good elevator pitch, he muddled through a last-minute meeting with a junior coordinator. That evening, he sat at the kitchen table while Linda sorted out the dinner dishes and Robert pretended to fix the Wi-Fi router for the 4th time that month. So how'd it go? Robert asked without looking up. I scraped through, I think. Maybe. Did it work out or not? Linda pressed. It came to a maybe callback, which is better than a no. Robert set down his screwdriver. Son, a bridge doesn't fall down because one bolt is loose. It falls apart when you stop paying attention entirely. Chloe walked in mid-sentence. Did Dad just compare Lucas to a structurally unsound bridge? Every fall down is a chance to measure up next time, Robert added proudly. That's genuinely 2 different phrases, Dad, Chloe said. Lucas put his head on the table. The callback came Tuesday. Episode 17, The Talk. Lucas had one job this weekend, convince his parents to let him skip the family reunion in Connecticut to finish his internship portfolio. Simple. Except nothing involving Linda and Robert was ever simple. He tried at breakfast. I need to bring up something, he started carefully. Robert didn't look up from his coffee. If it costs money, no. Dad, just let me get across what I'm saying first. Lucas took a breath. I want to put forward a reasonable case for skipping the reunion. Absolutely not, Linda said, already seeing to the dishes with surgical efficiency. Mom, I've been trying to get through to both of you for a week. This portfolio is due Monday. Speak up, Robert said, cupping his ear dramatically. I can't hear good decisions from you very often, so I want to savor this one. That's not Dad. Can you not pass on the dad jokes for 5 minutes? Chloe materialized from nowhere, stealing toast. Did you try talking it over with them calmly instead of just announcing things? I tried talking round the subject for 3 days. Wrong approach, she said, unbothered. You should have talked Mom into it first, then let her bring Dad round. Basic household politics, Lucas. Maya had told him the exact same thing on Thursday. He hadn't listened. I pointed out the deadline to you Tuesday, Ethan said flatly from the couch, not looking up from his laptop. Nobody had known he was there. Lucas turned to his mother, abandoning strategy entirely. Mom. Please. I'm talking you out of making me go. I need this. Linda dried her hands. Looked at him for a long moment. Spell it out for me. Exactly what happens if you miss the deadline. He did. Every detail. No shortcuts. She put it across to Robert in 4 sentences that evening. Robert agreed before dessert. Chloe collected an invisible trophy. Episode 18, Loyalty Test. It started, as most disasters do, with Marcus having an idea. He'd roped in Lucas to film a guerrilla marketing video for his startup, guerrilla meaning no permit, no plan, maximum confidence. They were shooting in the campus quad when Derek, a junior from the business school with a notoriously sharp tongue, walked by and started picking on Ethan about his thrift store jacket. You're really trying to blend in with humans today, huh? Derek said, smirking. Lucas lowered the camera. Something about it got to him immediately. Hey, back off, he said. Derek turned. You butting in, media boy? I'm sticking up for my friend, yeah. Derek turned on Lucas next, which was honestly a tactical error. Lucas, when cornered, had a gift for words. He hit back with 3 sentences so precise and calm that the small crowd that had gathered actually went quiet. Derek backed down. Fast. Later, Marcus laid into Lucas for stopping the shoot. You killed my golden footage, bro. I killed your permit-free liability, Marcus. I have you on camera being heroic, that's content. Ethan, who had said nothing since the quad, touched Lucas's shoulder. You didn't have to stand in for me like that. We stick together, Lucas said simply. That's the whole thing. Maya, who had witnessed everything, nodded slowly. For the record, you two almost fell out last week over a pizza topping. This was a significant upgrade. Don't take that out on the pizza, Marcus said. Pineapple deserved it. I will hold that against you forever, Ethan said quietly. He stood out from the crowd in his thrift store jacket. He didn't fix that. Episode 19. The Pressure Drop. Chloe had been dealing with something for 2 weeks and refusing to admit it. Her boyfriend Jake, sweet, unreliable, chronically late Jake, had been pulling away. She knew it. Maya knew it. Even Ethan, who tracked human emotions the way a golden retriever tracks abstract philosophy, had noticed. You need to face up to what's happening, Maya told her over coffee in the campus cafe, where Chloe had shown up unannounced looking like she hadn't slept. I'm fine. I can see through that in about 4 seconds. Chloe stirred her drink. He's been weird. Distant. I ran into him Tuesday and he could barely look at me. Did you take it on, try to address it? I bottled out every time. She exhaled. I kept thinking it'd fix itself. It didn't. Jake texted Thursday night. They were breaking up. No call. A text. By Friday, Chloe was at the house. Lucas found her on the back porch. You okay? No. He sat down next to her. Didn't try to fix it, which was, Maya had once told him, the correct move for once. He messed up, Lucas said simply. I know. She stopped. I ran up against this wall where I couldn't tell if I was being dramatic or if something was actually wrong. Both things can be true. She almost smiled. Inside, Linda was already sorting out a plate of food without being asked, her universal language for I see you. Robert appeared briefly, started to say something, then came under a sharp look from Linda and redirected to making tea instead. Later, when the house was quieter, Chloe fought back the last of it, not the tears, but the part that wanted to give in to the spiral. It was falling apart for a while, she admitted. I just didn't want to calm down long enough to see it. Maya, on speakerphone, said quietly, that's usually how it works. Lucas didn't back out of the porch until she was ready to go inside. He was annoying 90% of the time. But he took on the 10% that counted. Episode 20. The day everything was somewhere else. Lucas had one rule for days off: slow down, do nothing, recharge. The universe had other plans. It started at 8 a.m. when Robert knocked on his bedroom door. Move over, laziness. Your mother needs the car by 9 and you borrowed it last night. I put it back in the driveway, Lucas said into his pillow. Wrong driveway. You're at the Hendersons. Lucas slipped out before breakfast, retrieved the car, and returned to find Chloe in full panic mode at the kitchen table. I mixed up my SAT registration dates. I thought it was the 23rd. It's the 13th. That's this Saturday. Okay, slow down. Lucas, I need you to speed up. Can you track down that prep book you borrowed from Maya? He texted Maya. Maya said she'd reach out to Ethan, who had apparently borrowed it next. Ethan confirmed he had it, but needed to pick up his phone first because it had been on silent since Tuesday. Classic Ethan. Meanwhile, Marcus called. Bro, I need to find out if you can film my pitch presentation today. Marcus, I am trying to get out of 17 things simultaneously. I've been putting it off for 2 weeks. I can't fall behind on this. Then catch up on your own, man. Linda appeared, assessed the room in 4 seconds, and took over. Chloe, turn over every bag and backpack in this house. The book is somewhere. Lucas, check up on the camera equipment, then help your sister. Marcus, she'd somehow heard the call, pop out of Lucas's schedule today. Silence. Yes, Mrs. Chin, Marcus said through the phone immediately. By noon the book was found, pop out from under Chloe's own bed, the pitch was rescheduled, and Lucas was back on the couch. Robert picked up the remote, looked at his son, and said, a smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. Dad, please. Also put back my good screwdriver. Episode 21. Spring Cleaning, Nuclear Edition. Linda announced Saturday as Deep Clean Day, with the same energy a general announces an offensive campaign. Nobody was safe. Lucas, throw out anything in your old room you haven't touched in a year. That's everything. Correct. Robert had already begun clearing out the garage, which meant he was rediscovering every broken appliance he'd promised to fix since 2019 and could not throw out on principle. I'm going to root out the source of that smell, he announced gravely, as though tracking a network security breach. Lucas found a box of middle school journals under his bed. He started reading one. He should have put it away immediately. He did not. Oh no, he whispered. What? Chloe appeared in the doorway. He tried to cut out the worst page with scissors. Too slow. She'd already read it over his shoulder. You wrote a poem about a girl named Brittany. I'm tearing it up. She grabbed it. He grabbed back. The journal got torn apart between them like a peace treaty at a failed summit. Linda walked in to find confetti. Brush aside the paper scraps before your father sees. He'll blow up about the mess. He's going to knock over half the garage anyway, Chloe said. Predictably, a crash echoed from outside. I'm okay, Robert called. I stamped out a spider, though. Very successfully. Lucas crossed out "productive Saturday" from his mental list and rubbed out any lingering hope that this family operated on logic. He put away the surviving half of the journal. Some evidence needed to stay buried. Episode 22, Back to Basics. Robert announced at dinner, completely unprompted, that he was signing up for a night class in digital marketing. The table went silent. Dad, Chloe said carefully, you once called Instagram the photo Facebook. Which is why I need to read up on it. He slid a course brochure across the table with the confidence of a man who had never once dropped out of anything in his life. I've already started to brush up on the terminology. Did you know going viral is not about illness? Groundbreaking, Lucas said. Week 1, Robert came home and immediately jotted down 17 pages of notes in handwriting that looked like network cable diagrams. He asked Lucas to help him run through the first assignment, a simple brand audit. Okay, you need to fill out this worksheet first, Lucas said, pulling up the template. I already wrote out the whole thing by hand. Dad, it's a digital form. I noted down every field. It's the same information. Lucas pinched the bridge of his nose. By week 3, Robert had to write up a short campaign proposal. He asked Lucas to dip into his communications textbook, just for reference. He then mugged up on 3 chapters overnight, scribbled down an outline at 5 a.m., and summed up his entire strategy in one surprisingly sharp slide. His professor gave him a 91. See? Robert said at breakfast, sliding the grade across the table with the same energy as the brochure. I swat up on the material. Results follow preparation. You acted out a customer journey map in the living room last Tuesday, Linda said, not looking up from her coffee. Alone. At midnight. Immersive learning. Chloe turned over the graded paper and read the professor's comment aloud. Fresh perspective. Clearly self-taught. Robert looked deeply, insufferably pleased. Lucas picked up his own textbook and went back to studying, suddenly, inexplicably, feeling slightly outpaced by his 52-year-old father. He would never admit that out loud. Episode 23, The Great Broke Debacle. Marcus had a vision, a group birthday dinner for Maya at the nicest restaurant in Back Bay. The problem, as Ethan pointed out with characteristic timing, was that none of them had money. I ran up a tab last month on textbooks and haven't recovered, Lucas admitted. I still need you to pay back that 20 from February, Marcus said. I need Marcus to pay up on the Super Bowl bet from January, Ethan said, still not looking up from his laptop. We can club together, Maya offered, completely unaware this conversation was about her dinner. The group migrated to the problem without her. Okay, Lucas said, assuming accidental leadership. We shop around, find somewhere with the same vibe, less damage. That Back Bay place will absolutely rip us off. Ethan had already pulled up 3 alternatives. This one on Newberry will knock off about $40 per head. Good reviews. Not a skimp on quality situation. Marcus, who had originally planned to splash out on a 7-course tasting menu, looked physically pained. Fine. But I'm not forking out for the overpriced wine list. Nobody asked you to. They snapped up a reservation for Friday, stocked up on a cake from the bakery 2 blocks over, picked up at half price because it was end of day, and collectively decided to write off the Back Bay fantasy as a loss. Linda, hearing the plans secondhand from Lucas, quietly saved up a gift card to slip into Maya's card anyway. Settle up on the kindness, she told Lucas when he raised an eyebrow. He didn't argue. Maya cried a little at dinner. The good kind. Marcus beat down the dessert bill by claiming it was also someone's birthday at the next table. It wasn't. But it worked. Episode 24. The Plan That Planned Too Hard. Marcus walked into the campus library with a whiteboard. A portable whiteboard. Under his arm. On a Tuesday. I've thought ahead, he announced to Lucas and Ethan, who had been enjoying a rare moment of quiet. We're setting out a 5-year roadmap. Today. A roadmap for what? Lucas asked. Life. Careers. The future. Plan ahead or get left behind, my dad's words, but I'm monetizing them. Ethan slowly closed his laptop. I need you to think this through before I engage. Marcus had already uncapped a marker. He put forward his vision, a joint venture between his startup, Lucas's media skills, and Ethan's technical ability. He'd come up with the concept at 2 a.m., which explained the handwriting. Okay, Lucas said, deciding to participate rather than resist. Let's weigh up the actual risks first. I've allowed for risks. See, this column. Ethan leaned in. That column says vibes. Contingency vibes. They spent an hour genuinely trying to narrow down the concept to something executable. Lucas pushed to sort out the legal structure before anything else. Ethan insisted they think over the technical infrastructure. Marcus wanted to press for a launch date within 90 days, which both of them immediately set against. That timeline calls for resources we don't have, Ethan said. Then we fix up the resource problem first, Marcus said. That's actually logical, Lucas admitted, suspicious. They carried out a rough feasibility breakdown over 2 hours, following up each section with Ethan's brutal margin notes. By the end, the whiteboard looked like a crime scene, but a productive crime scene. Does this tie in with your communications thesis? Maya asked, arriving late with coffee, reading the board in 10 seconds. Lucas stared at it. It absolutely did. He dealt with that realization privately because Marcus would never let him live it down. Episode 25, Glow Up or Go Home. The agency where Lucas was interning was hosting an end-of-semester showcase. Real clients, real creatives, real dress code. Lucas owned exactly one blazer. It had a mustard stain near the pocket that he'd convinced himself stood out in a good way. Chloe disagreed at a cellular level. You cannot walk in there looking like you stick out from a thrift store clearance rack, she said, already pulling things from his closet with the focus of a trauma surgeon. I was going to dress up the blazer with a nice shirt. Which nice shirt? The gray one or the slightly different gray one? Maya, also present and uninvited, was surveying the damage. You need to freshen up the whole look. Not a costume, just elevated. I don't want to put on a show. I want to look like myself. Then, let's find the version of yourself that doesn't look like you blended in with the wallpaper at a 2009 graduation party. Chloe did up the top button of a borrowed navy shirt, rolled the sleeves, swapped the stained blazer for a clean, slim-cut one from Robert's closet Dad will never notice, and stepped back. There. You set yourself apart without trying too hard. Lucas looked in the mirror. He looked, actually good. See? Maya said. You were showing off the wrong things. Tone down the chaos, let the competence breathe. That's either the nicest or most insulting thing you've said to me. Why not both? At the showcase, his presentation landed well. His supervisor later said his work took off the moment he stopped second-guessing himself on camera. His mentor couldn't tell apart his segment from the senior intern's reels. Robert never noticed the blazer was gone. Linda noticed immediately and said nothing. That tracked. Episode 26. Somebody's gotta do it. Lucas's internship supervisor sent one email on Monday morning that restructured the entire week. Our senior content lead is out. Lucas, Can you take on her responsibilities through Friday? He stared at it for 4 minutes. Then he texted Marcus. I think I just got a promotion by accident. Marcus responded instantly, say yes and negotiate later. By Tuesday, Lucas was snowed under. He was carrying out 2 campaign briefs, working on a client video script, and trying to follow up on 3 unanswered emails from a brand partner, all before noon. Can you fill in for me at the 2 p.m. team check-in? He asked his co-intern Priya. I'm completely tied up with the social calendar. Can you squeeze in 15 minutes? Lucas. She gave him a look. Wriggle out of something. You can't do everything. He couldn't step down from the assignment. He'd already said yes. But he fixed up his schedule by cutting 2 non-essential tasks and delegating a rough cut to the editing intern he'd been ignoring all semester. That evening, he called Maya. I think I need to branch out, build a skill set that actually handles pressure, not just looks like it does. That's the most self-aware thing you've said since episode 1, she said. Don't work towards a psychology thesis using my life. Too late. By Friday, he'd pulled together a campaign deck his supervisor forwarded to the actual client. He worked towards a thank you email for 20 minutes and sent it in 30 seconds. Progress. Episode 27. The Slow Realization. It took Lucas 11 days to find out that the girl in his media ethics seminar, Nora, third row, always had highlighters color-coded by subject, had been trying to get his attention for most of the semester. Maya pointed it out at lunch with the energy of someone who had been sitting on this information for weeks. She literally latched on to every topic you brought up in class last Tuesday. For 40 minutes. That's just engaged participation. Lucas. Maya set down her fork. Think this through. He did not think it through. He went home and slept on it, which in his case meant staring at the ceiling for 2 hours cataloging every seminar interaction and slowly coming to the horrifying, wonderful conclusion that Maya was right. He texted Ethan, Did you know Nora from ethics might be into me? Ethan replied 4 minutes later, I worked that out in week 3. I assumed you had too. Lucas took in this information in stages, like a software update he wasn't ready for. The next seminar, he tried to get across a point about media framing and completely blanked mid-sentence. Nora finished his thought correctly without missing a beat. He saw through his own panic long enough to smile at her afterward. She smiled back. You okay? Marcus asked later. You look like a man who just thought over every life choice simultaneously. That's exactly what happened. See through the nerves, man. Just talk to her. That's terrible advice delivered with great confidence. That's my whole brand. Episode 28. The First Date Debrief. Lucas had asked Nora to coffee. Nora had said yes. This was, by any metric, a win. What happened after was the problem. He showed up to Maya's dorm room at 9 p.m. looking like a man who had survived something. Fire away, Maya said immediately, pulling her knees up on the bed. Okay, so, he stopped. Opened his mouth. Closed it. Lucas. Spit it out. I talked for 45 minutes about the history of documentary filmmaking. Silence. Steady on, did she leave? No, that's the thing. She stayed. She asked questions. Good ones. He ran a hand through his hair. But somewhere around the Ken Burns section I just dried up. Completely. Sat there like a blank document. Okay, hang on. She stayed, engaged, asked follow-up questions, and you're spiraling. Why exactly? Because I banked on being smooth and I was not smooth, Maya. Come off it. You're never smooth. That's not your brand. Rude. Accurate. She leaned forward. Leave aside the awkward patches. What actually happened between you two? Lucas paused. And then, slowly, something bubbled over a real smile. We walked around for another hour after the coffee place closed. She's really funny. Like, sharp funny. See? Let me run through what you just described. She stayed, she laughed, she walked with you for an hour. That sets you apart from every guy who played it cool and said nothing real. So I didn't ruin it? Things are just hotting up, Lucas. He looked genuinely startled by hope. Don't bank on me always being this nice, Maya added. Never have. Episode 29, The First Date Debrief, updated. Lucas had asked Nora to coffee. Nora had said yes. This was, by any metric, a win. What happened after was the problem. He showed up to Maya's dorm room at 9 p.m. looking like a man who had survived something. "Fire away," Maya said immediately, pulling her knees up on the bed. "Okay, so," he stopped. Opened his mouth. Closed it. "Lucas." "Spit it out." "I talked for 45 minutes about the history of documentary filmmaking." Silence. "Steady on, did she leave?" "No, that's the thing. She stayed. She asked questions. Good ones." He ran a hand through his hair. "But somewhere around the Ken Burns section I just dried up. Completely. Sat there like a blank document." "Okay, hang on." "She stayed, engaged, asked follow-up questions, and you're spiraling. Why exactly?" "Because I banked on being smooth and I was not smooth, Maya. I was trying to pass myself off as someone who casually knows everything about film, and she absolutely clocked it. Come off it. You're never smooth. That's not your brand." "Rude." "Accurate." She leaned forward. "Leave aside the awkward patches. What actually happened between you two?" Lucas paused. And then, slowly, something bubbled over, a real smile. "We walked around for another hour after the coffee place closed. She's really funny. Like, sharp funny. See? Let me run through what you just described. She stayed, she laughed, she walked with you for an hour. That sets you apart from every guy who played it cool and said nothing real. So I didn't ruin it? Things are just hotting up, Lucas." He looked genuinely startled by hope. "Don't bank on me always being this nice," Maya added. "Never have." Episode 30, Marcus Incorporated, Terms and Conditions Apply. Marcus had drawn up a business plan. A real one this time, 12 pages, tabs, a cover page with a logo. He slid it across the library table like a casino dealer. "I'm setting up a campus content agency. Student brands, event promos, dorm-to-dorm marketing. I need you to bring in your media skills and Ethan to build the backend." Lucas scanned page 1. "You penciled in a revenue projection for month 2? Conservatively." "It says $15,000, Marcus." "Conservatively." Ethan had already run into the first issue. The proposed platform required licensing they hadn't budgeted for. He flagged it without looking up. Marcus waved it aside. Lucas chased up the actual licensing cost online. It was not small. "Okay," Lucas said. "We can't go ahead with the original tech stack. We work towards a simpler MVP first, keep at it for a semester, then step up when revenue actually exists." Marcus looked pained. "You want me to wind down the vision?" "I want you to not run into a wall at full speed." They spent 3 hours restructuring. Ethan tied up the backend architecture into something buildable. Lucas pulled together a service menu. Marcus, grudgingly, stepped down from his 15,000 month to fantasy and handed over the financial section to Ethan's logic. By Thursday, tasks were piling up. Lucas was slaving away on the brand deck while simultaneously trying to squeeze in his actual coursework. Ethan was snowed under with the technical build. Marcus, sensing mutiny, tried to wriggle out of the admin work by claiming it was below his skill set. "Nobody is stepping down from paperwork," Lucas said flatly. "Keep on at it." "I'm just saying." "Marcus, move along." Their professor in Lucas's entrepreneurship elective, yes, he'd branched out into an elective, told them to fix up the pitch deck before Friday's optional feedback session. Lucas worked on it until 1 a.m., carrying out every revision note with unusual diligence. Maya followed up with a text at midnight. "How's the startup going?" "Lucas, we're either building something real or a very detailed way to fail together." "Maya, that's literally what every startup is." He squeezed in 4 hours of sleep. Friday, their professor read the deck, nodded slowly, and said, "Leave it to the communications kid to make a business plan actually readable." Marcus looked personally vindicated, as if he had written it. Lucas kept at his coffee and said nothing. Some battles weren't worth cracking down on. Episode 31, The Budget That Broke the Family. Linda had one rule about the household finances: she controlled them. Completely. Absolutely. Without exception. So when Robert quietly admitted he'd run up an unexpected expense, a vintage router he'd snapped up at an estate sale for parts, and that the household account had come to slightly less than expected this month, the kitchen atmosphere dropped approximately 15 degrees. How much? Linda asked, in the tone she reserved for difficult restaurant vendors. I picked it up cheap. The guy let me knock off 30%. Robert. $240. Linda set down her spatula with surgical precision. I had set aside that amount for Chloe's SAT prep materials. Chloe looked up from her phone. I'm now invested in this. I'll pay it back, Robert said quickly. I can cut back on the lunch spending this week. You said that in February, Linda said. You ran up a coffee tab at the campus cafe when you visited Lucas. That was networking. With a latte. Meanwhile, across town, Lucas and Marcus were having a parallel financial crisis of their own. Marcus had forked out for a bulk order of branded merchandise for the startup without telling anyone, and discovered the vendor had essentially ripped them off. The quality was unusable. We need to sell off whatever we can sell out of before the launch, Lucas said, staring at a box of lopsided tote bags. I withdrew my own savings for this, Marcus said quietly. This was new. Marcus didn't do quiet. Lucas paused. How much did you actually pay up for these? Enough that I can't write it off as a small loss. They sat with that for a moment. Okay, Lucas said. We shop around for a replacement vendor, club together on the reorder cost, and splash out on quality this time instead of skimping on it to save $50. I was trying to save up for the next phase. And now you're trying to pay off a mistake instead. Classic. Marcus beat down his pride long enough to nod. Back home, Robert had stocked up on Linda's favorite tea as a peace offering. Linda accepted it without comment, which in their household language meant forgiven but not forgotten. Chloe gave away nothing with her expression. She was, however, already shopping around for a better SAT prep course, one that came to less than the original and had better reviews. She set aside the difference for emergencies. She was 17 and already better at this than everyone else in the family. Nobody was surprised. Episode 32, Startup Therapy. The campus content agency had a name now, Pivot. Marcus had chosen it at 1 a.m. and nobody had the energy to argue. What they did have energy to argue about was everything else. I think we should hire out editing work to freelancers for the first 2 months, Lucas said, spreading a spreadsheet across the dorm room floor. We can't pour all our time into production and expect to grow clientele simultaneously. We need to set up the systems first before we outsource anything, Ethan said. A bad setup now creates compounding problems at scale. I want to branch out into event coverage by April, Marcus added. Marcus, we started off 3 weeks ago, Lucas said. We are not branching anywhere yet. Marcus had also, without consultation, floated the idea of a spin-off, a separate podcast production arm. Ethan had produced a document titled Why This Will Kill Us and emailed it to the group at 7 a.m. If we run up against cash flow problems in month 2, Ethan said, reading from his own document, and we've already started up a second vertical, we risk the whole thing going under. Companies go under because they think small, Marcus said. Companies go under because they run up against reality unprepared, Lucas replied. They had put their combined savings at roughly $1,800. Not nothing. Not enough for recklessness. What if someone tries to take over the client relationships and wind down our involvement? Marcus asked suddenly. Like a bigger agency. Then we make ourselves too valuable to replace, Lucas said. And if we can't? Then we sell up, learn what we learned, and start something better. Marcus stared at him. That was almost Marcus energy, he said, impressed. Don't set up a monument about it. Ethan saved the spreadsheet and closed his laptop. We start up properly Monday, he said. With an actual client. I found one. Both of them turned. My professor needs a departmental video. $40. Silence. It's not nothing, Lucas said. It's absolutely not nothing, Ethan agreed. Marcus looked at the ceiling. Pivot's first contract, $40 and a faculty headshot. Every empire somewhere started off like this. Episode 33, The Call That Wasn't. It started because Lucas called in sick to his internship on a Tuesday. He wasn't actually sick. This was, in retrospect, the original sin. His supervisor had tried to put him through to the client call anyway. You can just listen in. No pressure, but Lucas had already hung up before the second ring. He called around to Marcus and Ethan for moral support. Neither picked up. He got through to Maya on the third try. "I let on that I had a fever," he said. "Did you cough?" "Twice." Unconvincingly. "Lucas." His supervisor called back within the hour. Lucas didn't answer. She called up the main intern coordinator instead, which was objectively worse. Lucas spent 40 minutes drafting an apology email, deleted it, then got back to her via text like a coward. That evening, Chloe overheard the whole story and immediately brought it up at dinner. "Lucas faked sick and wound up creating an HR paper trail," she announced. "I did not create a." "Did she talk down to you?" Linda asked, surprisingly calm. "No. She was professional," which was somehow more devastating. Robert set down his fork. A man who mouths off to avoid responsibility will always let someone down worse than the original mistake. "Dad, I'm not finished. Have it out with her tomorrow. Directly. Don't break off the conversation early, don't shut up when it gets uncomfortable, and don't let her cut you off before you've said what needs saying. Put her on speaker so we can coach you," Marcus texted at that exact moment. Lucas showed the table. "Shut that down," Linda said immediately. Robert nodded firmly. "Open up, apologize clean, and wind up the call on your terms. That's it." Lucas called up his supervisor at 8 a.m. Wednesday. Didn't ring off early. Didn't let on that his hands were shaking. She appreciated the directness more than the apology. He called round to tell Maya first. She already knew. She always knew. Episode 34, the one where everyone has feelings. It began, as most emotional catastrophes do, on a perfectly ordinary Thursday. Lucas finally asked Nora out. Properly. With words, in person, without getting carried away into a 40-minute documentary monologue. She said yes. He jumped at the chance to suggest Saturday before his brain could interfere. He told Maya first. "I knew you'd warm to her eventually," she said, in the tone of someone collecting a debt. "I took to her pretty fast, actually." Lucas. It took 14 episodes. Meanwhile, across campus, Marcus and a girl named Sophia, who he had been chatting up at every business school event since October, had officially started going out. They had hit it off immediately at a networking mixer, which was either romantic or deeply on brand for Marcus. "She doesn't just settle for surface conversation," Marcus told Ethan, unprompted, while Ethan was trying to debug code. "She really opens up, you know? She pours out these ideas and I just..." Marcus. "Yeah. I feel for you, genuinely. But I'm on a deadline." Ethan, for his part, had been hung up about a situation with his family back home, something he'd been bottling up for weeks. His parents wanted him to move back after graduation. He hadn't told anyone. Maya noticed on Wednesday. She always noticed. "You grew up carrying everything alone," she said quietly, when he finally opened up over coffee. "That's not a personality trait. It's a habit." He didn't argue. At home, the weekend brought its own weather. Chloe had fallen out with her best friend over something that started small and drifted apart into something bigger before either of them could cool down enough to address it. She was determinedly bottling it up, which meant she was reorganizing her bookshelf by color, her tell. Linda brought it up gently at dinner. Robert, sensing emotional terrain, made tea and cheered up the room by accidentally getting carried away, describing a network cable metaphor for friendship. Sometimes connections drift apart not because the signal is bad but because... "Dad," Chloe said. "Yes." "Calm down." He brightened up anyway, because the metaphor was, structurally, quite good. Chloe texted her friend that night. Short. Direct. No going back on it. Her friend replied in 4 seconds. They didn't split up over nothing. They never did. Lucas, walking back from his Saturday coffee date with Nora, which had gone, by all accounts, remarkably well, past the campus fountain, and felt something he couldn't quite name. Not quite happiness. something steadier. He took after his mother in that way, not one for grand declarations, but deeply, quietly moved by the small things holding together. He texted the group chat, "Good day." Marcus replied, "Details." Ethan replied, "Acknowledged." Maya replied, "I know." Chloe, who was not in the group chat, somehow knew anyway. Episode 35, The Great Migration. Marcus had announced, with zero prior discussion, that he was moving out of his dorm and moving in with two business school guys across town. The news arrived via group chat at 11 p.m. with 3 fire emojis and no context. By Saturday, everyone had tagged along to help, which mostly meant Ethan stood near the boxes offering structural advice, while Lucas did the actual carrying. "You said to bring along only essentials," Lucas said, struggling with a suspiciously heavy crate. "Business books are essentials." They set off at 9 in a borrowed van that pulled up outside the dorm 15 minutes late because Marcus had made the driver stop off for coffee. The driver, Marcus's cousin, pulled over twice to check the GPS and once because Marcus was giving contradictory directions. "Draw up to the curb here." "That's a fire hydrant, Marcus." They got in around noon. The new apartment smelled like old carpet and ambition, which suited Marcus perfectly. Chloe had come over to say goodbye, which she framed as just dropping in, but had arrived with a card, so the truth was visible. "You're not going off forever," Lucas told her. "He lives 12 minutes away." "I know," she said, in the voice of someone who knew but still felt it. Maya came round later with food. They sat on boxes and ate takeaway Thai in an apartment that didn't have chairs yet. "Is there anything left over from the spring rolls?" Ethan asked, 20 minutes after finishing his portion. "You ran over your own share," Marcus said. "I have no memory of that." Robert, having been picked up and dropped off by Linda to make a brief paternal inspection, looked around the apartment, pulled out a level from his jacket pocket, nobody asked why he had it, checked the kitchen shelf, and declared the whole enterprise structurally acceptable. He set out a lecture on renters' rights that nobody fully listened to but everyone half absorbed. Moving out isn't the same as moving on, but sometimes it's the right first step. Marcus touched down in his new life at 3 p.m. By 3:15, he had texted Lucas, "Can you come round tomorrow? I forgot how to work the thermostat." Lucas sent back a thumbs up. Home, apparently, was still negotiable. Episode 36. Tech support is not a personality. Robert had one day off. One. He had planned to spend it doing nothing involving screens, cables, or other people's problems. By 9 a.m. he was setting up Linda's new work laptop because the restaurant's accounting software needed a fresh install and the IT guy is unavailable until Thursday. "Just plug it in, switch it on, and log in with the credentials they emailed," Linda said, presenting this as a simple task. It was not a simple task. The system required a 2-factor authentication that went to a phone that was cut off due to an unpaid bill. Robert keyed in 3 wrong passwords before the account locked. He called Ethan. Ethan answered on the second ring, which meant he was either very free or very bored. "Walk me through it," Robert said. "Did you scroll down to the recovery option?" "I scrolled up and scrolled down. There is no recovery option." "Zoom in on the bottom right corner." "There it is." 20 minutes later, they had freed up enough system storage to run the install. The previous IT person had apparently never backed up anything and had used up nearly all available disk space with duplicate files. Robert filtered out the redundant folders with the focus of a man defusing a bomb and printed out a clean summary report for Linda. Then Lucas called. "Dad, my laptop keeps breaking down mid-lecture. Can you?" "No. It might be hacked into." "It is not hacked into, Lucas. You haven't signed out of 17 browser tabs and you've run out of RAM." "How do you know that without seeing it?" "Because I know you." Chloe logged off her own laptop, having watched the entire morning unfold from the kitchen table. "Dad," she said, "you fixed Mom's restaurant system, diagnosed Lucas remotely, and it's not even noon." Robert picked up his coffee. "Someone in this family has to pick up the slack. That's kind of your whole personality." He considered this. "There are worse ones," he said. He brought down his coffee mug gently, switched off the kitchen monitor he'd been using as a second screen, and finally sat down. For 11 minutes, nobody needed anything. It was, Robert reflected, a personal record. Episode 37. The Incident at the Parking Lot. Nobody planned for Marcus to witness a crime. That was simply the kind of thing that happened to Marcus. He'd been holding up a parking spot for Lucas outside the library when he saw two guys beat up a third behind the adjacent building. He froze. Then he called Lucas. Then, because Marcus's threat assessment system runs on bravado rather than logic, he stood up for the stranger by yelling from a distance. This was not recommended. By the time Lucas arrived, campus security had been tipped off by someone else, the two guys had broken off and scattered, and Marcus was giving a statement with the energy of a man who had personally brought down a criminal enterprise. "You could have gotten mixed up in something genuinely dangerous," Lucas said. "I looked out for someone who needed it." You yelled from 20 feet away. Strategically. The situation flared up again when one of the security officers suggested Marcus might have been put up to intervening by someone, implying he wasn't just a bystander. Marcus, deeply offended, nearly went off entirely before Lucas put a hand on his arm. "Don't," Lucas said quietly. Marcus stood down. "Barely." Later, Maya dissected the psychology of it over coffee. "Someone tried to take you in with that implication," she told Marcus. "They were leaning on you to see if you'd contradict your own story." "I knew that," Marcus said. "You absolutely did not know that." "I felt it." Ethan, who had read the full incident report Chloe somehow obtained, looked up. "The university is cracking down on unauthorized gatherings near the library block. This will clamp down on the whole area's vibe for weeks." "There goes the guerrilla marketing zone," Marcus muttered. Lucas stared at him. "A man was beaten up, Marcus." "I know. I stood up for him. We've circled back." Maya let off a slow, controlled exhale that contained multitudes. Nobody had done away with the chaos. They had simply, as always, survived it together. Episode 38. Domestic Catastrophe in 3 Acts. Act 1. The Morning. Lucas had stayed up until 2 a.m. editing a Pivot client video, which meant he overslept straight through his 9 a.m. alarm, his 9:15 backup alarm, and what he later learned was Chloe banging on his door at 9:40. He finally got up at 10:07 with the specific shame of a man who had promised himself, sincerely, genuinely, that he would not sleep in on a school day. Downstairs, Linda had already wound down her morning shift prep and left for the restaurant. Robert had woken up at 6, warmed up with a 20-minute walk, and was now reading at the kitchen table with the quiet smugness of a man who had burned off 200 calories before Lucas had achieved consciousness. "Lion on a Wednesday," Robert observed, without looking up. "I was working." "Until when?" 2. Robert turned a page. Said nothing. The silence was worse. Act 2. The Kitchen. Chloe had attempted breakfast and discovered 3 problems in rapid succession. The milk had gone off, the frozen bread needed to thaw out before it could be toasted, and the pot of oatmeal she'd left on the stove had boiled over while she was checking her phone. "This is why I eat out," she announced to no one. Lucas, now vertical, inspected the fridge. He had been living off protein bars and campus cafe coffee for 4 days. The fridge confirmed this was catching up with him. "We need groceries." "We've needed groceries since Sunday," Chloe said. "I've been living on cereal and willpower." Lucas heated up leftover rice from Tuesday, questionable but survivable, and poured out 2 glasses of water like a man performing the bare minimum of self-care. "Did you wait up for Mom last night?" Chloe asked. "She texted at 11. She was fine." Chloe nodded, pouring out the spoiled milk down the drain with a small, ceremonial grimace. Act 3. The Evening. Marcus had slept over unannounced, his new apartment's heat had cut out, and was now cooling down after a jog he claimed to take every morning, but which everyone suspected was his first in weeks. "Bring up the food situation at dinner," he told Lucas. "Your mom will fix it." "I'm not weaponizing my mother against an empty fridge, Marcus. That's literally what families are for." Linda arrived at 7 with 2 grocery bags, having apparently deduced the situation from a single fridge photo Chloe had sent at noon with no caption. She heated up a proper meal in 20 minutes. Everyone wound down around the kitchen table without planning to. Robert poured out tea for everyone, including Marcus, which was either hospitality or a warning. Marcus accepted it gratefully. "Wake up earlier tomorrow," Linda told Lucas on her way out of the kitchen. "I will," he said. He would not. But he meant it every time. Episode 39. The weather had other plans. The Pivot team had exactly one outdoor shoot scheduled all semester, a brand video for a local coffee roaster, golden hour, rooftop location, fully planned since March. The sky clouded over at noon. "It'll clear up," Marcus said, with the certainty of a man who had never once correctly predicted weather. By 1 p.m. the temperature had dropped 8 degrees. The wind had picked up to the point where Maya's script pages were now somewhere in Brookline. It began to pour down at 1:47, not a drizzle, a full downpour, which technically made it a rained-off shoot before Lucas could even finish packing the light stands. "We're flooded out," Ethan said flatly, watching water pool across the rooftop access stairs. "It'll blow over," Marcus insisted. "Marcus, that is a weather system. It will not blow over in the next 4 hours." It did not let up until nearly 5, by which point the golden hour was gone, the roaster's owner had gone home, and the 4 of them were huddled in the stairwell cooling down from the argument that had briefly warmed up between Lucas and Marcus about whose job it was to check the forecast. "Mine," Lucas admitted eventually. "It was my job." "At least you said it," Maya offered. Chloe, who had been texting from home all afternoon, sent a single message at 5:03. "Did you check the weather before you left?" Lucas stared at his phone. "We snowed in on a project by our own overconfidence," Ethan said quietly. "It's April," Marcus said. "There's no snow." "It's a metaphor, Marcus." They rescheduled for the following Thursday. The forecast showed clear skies. Lucas set 3 weather alerts. Robert, informed of the situation at dinner, nodded slowly and said, "Even a good network needs a backup line." Nobody had the energy to object. Episode 40. The decision that took all week. Lucas had been offered a part-time position at the agency. Real pay, real hours, real conflict with his course schedule. He told no one for 3 days. Maya found out anyway, she always did, and arrived at his dorm Thursday evening with tea and 0 patience for avoidance. "You need to have it out with yourself before this eats you alive," she said, settling into his desk chair like a therapist who made house calls. "I'm still thinking it over." "You've been thinking it over since Monday." "That's not reflection, that's hiding." Lucas exhaled. "Okay, help me work it out." They spread everything on the floor: course requirements, internship hours, pivot commitments, finances. Maya made him weigh up each factor out loud, which forced him to actually take in the full picture instead of cycling through anxiety highlights. "Allow for the commute time," she said. "You always forget the commute." "I always forget the commute," he admitted. He'd been trying to narrow down the decision to a simple yes or no, but the more he thought it through, the more variables surfaced. Could he sort out the scheduling conflict with his Tuesday seminar? Had he come up with a realistic plan for Pivot's workload redistribution? "Point out what you actually want," Maya said. "Not what's logical." "What do you want?" He paused. "The job." "Then you've already made up your mind. Everything else is just paperwork." She was right. He hated when she was right at this speed. He brought it up with Robert that weekend, who listened fully before speaking, a habit Lucas had only recently latched onto as a communication strategy worth copying. "Sleep on it one more night," Robert said. "Then decide clean." Lucas came to his answer Sunday morning before his alarm. He accepted the position by 9 a.m. He forgot about the commute again by 9:15. Some things Maya dealt with on his behalf by simply forwarding him a transit app. Episode 41. The day Pivot almost didn't. It started with the Wi-Fi. The cafe where Ethan had been hosting Pivot's backend server on a handshake agreement with the owner, which Marcus had described as a legitimate business arrangement and everyone else had described as a disaster waiting to happen, went off without warning on a Tuesday morning. Completely dead. The owner had pulled out of the informal deal to renovate the space. 3 client deliverables were due Friday. Problems began piling up immediately. The cloud backup had run out of storage because nobody had used up the free tier carefully. The shared drive broke down mid-sync. Lucas's laptop connection kept cutting off every 7 minutes, which he wound up timing with quiet, dead-eyed precision. "We're falling apart," Marcus said, in the tone of a man who had given in to the drama of the moment. "We are not falling apart," Lucas said. "We have a technical problem. Ethan is solving it." Ethan was, in fact, already solving it, headphones on, expression unreadable, snowed under with error logs, but visibly functional. Marcus began to bottle out of the Friday client call entirely. "I think we should step down from the Hendrix account. Hand it over to, I don't know, someone who has Wi-Fi. Marcus, don't back out of this. We have until Thursday night." "I'm not wriggling out of responsibility, I'm being realistic." "You're being scared. Those are different." Silence. Marcus sat down. By Wednesday, Ethan had broken down the migration to a new hosting solution into 4 clean steps and executed 3 of them before noon. Lucas restructured the client timeline. Marcus, to his credit, stepped up on the client communication without being asked, sending a brief, professional update that bought them the breathing room they needed. The deliverables went out Friday at 11:47 p.m. 13 minutes to spare. "We almost wound up shutting down," Marcus said, staring at the sent confirmation. "But we didn't," Lucas said. Ethan closed his laptop. Statistically, 1 near collapse early is healthy for a startup. Breaks down the overconfidence. "Did you just call our crisis healthy?" Marcus asked. "I called it instructive." Marcus looked at the ceiling. "I'm buying the server next time," he said. "An actual one." "Hand over your credit card in the morning," Ethan said. "I'll handle it." Marcus did not argue. Some lessons only break through once you've nearly broken down completely. Episode 42, The Art of Saying the Wrong Thing Perfectly. Lucas had prepared. That was the thing nobody would believe afterward. He had genuinely, sincerely prepared. 3rd date with Nora. Coffee upgraded to dinner. He'd even run 3 opening lines by Chloe, who had rated them 4 out of 10, 3 out of 10, and "please never say that to another human being." The dinner itself went fine. Better than fine. They talked for 2 hours without Lucas once mentioning Ken Burns. Then, walking back across campus, Marcus materialized from a side path like a business casual apparition. "Bro. Spit it out, is this the girl?" Nora looked amused. Lucas looked like a man considering a new identity. "Fire away, I've heard things," Marcus continued, extending a hand to Nora with the confidence of someone who had never once read a room correctly. "Marcus," Lucas started. "Come off it, you literally described her hair color in the group chat." "Hang on. Steady on, I'm just saying." "Shut up." A beat. Marcus brightened up instead of deflating, which was somehow worse. "She's great," he told Lucas, as if Nora wasn't standing right there. "Also that chat-up line you used in week 1? The documentary thing? I heard about it." Bold move. Nora turned to Lucas. "The Ken Burns thing was a line?" "It was not a line, it was a catastrophic accident." "Cool down," Maya said, appearing from the exact same path Marcus had used, holding 2 coffees. She handed one to Nora. "He mouthed off the whole story to us in October. You were already the most interesting person in his seminar by week 2. Nora accepted the coffee. Looked at Lucas. "Calm down," she said, smiling. "It's a good story." Lucas brightened up despite himself. Marcus leaned toward Ethan, who had also, inexplicably, been on that path, and whispered, "We're good wingmen." "We were explicitly told not to come," Ethan said. "And yet here we are. Thriving." Episode 43, The Day Everything Came Up at Once. Underscore 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 The semester's final stretch had a way of bringing up every unresolved issue simultaneously, as if the academic calendar was also a therapist with a grudge. Lucas's week set out normally enough. Monday morning, clean slate, 3 manageable deadlines. By Tuesday, it had broken down into something unrecognizable. First, his part-time agency hours cut into his Tuesday seminar prep. He tried to get out of an editorial meeting, but his supervisor wasn't having it. Second, Pivot's newest client turned up unannounced at the library wanting to just check in on a deliverable that wasn't due until Thursday. Marcus put on his most professional smile and brought him down from a mild panic with a 10-minute verbal walkthrough. Lucas watched, genuinely impressed. Third, Nora came up in conversation at dinner. Specifically, Chloe brought it up and Robert asked 2 deceptively simple questions that Lucas spent the rest of the evening working out answers to. Does she pick up on the things you don't say? Robert asked. Lucas paused. Yeah, actually. Good sign. Wednesday, things began to take off in a better direction. The client approved the pivot draft. Lucas's seminar paper set up a strong argument his professor flagged for the department showcase. And Nora texted first, something small, a shared joke from their last conversation, which Lucas turned up the volume on, metaphorically speaking, by responding in under 4 minutes instead of his usual performative 20. You ran into a good week hiding inside a bad one, Maya told him Thursday. That's very poetic. I have layers. Marcus put off celebrating until Friday, then went off about their monthly revenue numbers in the group chat at 7 a.m. like a man with no concept of appropriate timing. Ethan muted the conversation. Lucas left it on. Some noise he was working out was worth keeping. Episode 44, The Pitch. Marcus burst into the dorm room waving his laptop like a flag. Guys, I figured out how we're gonna make actual money this summer. Lucas groaned from his bed, half buried in a comms assignment he'd been avoiding for 3 days. Just stand by me on this one, Marcus said. I need you to stick by the plan even if it sounds insane at first. Ethan didn't even look up from his monitor. What's the plan? An app. A scheduling app for college clubs. We need to enter into a basic partnership agreement, nothing crazy, just to keep things official. Marcus pulled up a slide deck. I already drew on some market research from my business class. Lucas sat up. Okay, but how do we work out who does what? That's why I'm here, Maya said, walking in uninvited as usual, sensing drama from 2 floors down. Let me suss out the real issue before you 3 kill each other. They spent the next hour trying to classify tasks, coding, design, marketing, and base assignments on actual skill instead of ego. Ethan would go on to build the backend once Marcus could draw together investor contacts. Eventually, Maya helped them arrive at a decision. Small pilot test first. Don't focus on scaling yet, she said, pointing out that they hadn't even followed up on their last group project's mistakes. Let's sum up, Lucas said. We build it small, test it, then move on to bigger stuff. Marcus grinned. I can account for that. Episode 45, The Blank Page. Chloe stared at her laptop like it owed her money. I don't even know how to start off this essay, she groaned. Robert peeked over her shoulder, coffee mug in hand. Just set out a basic structure first, intro, body, conclusion. It's not rocket science, sweetheart. Well, I'd know, I'm basically an engineer. Dad, nobody asked for a joke. Linda swooped in from the kitchen, drying her hands on a towel. Why don't you move on from the sports story and go on to the one about your grandma? That one actually has heart. Chloe sighed. I tried that draft already. I just keep wanting to come back to the original idea. Lucas, scrolling on the couch, finally chimed in. Okay, hot take, turn to the moment you actually felt something. Stop overthinking the format. Easy for you to say, Mr. I write everything at 2 a.m. Maya, visiting for dinner, jumped in calmly. Sometimes you have to break away from what everyone's telling you and just write what's true to you. Robert nodded. She's right. Every great story has to enter into that vulnerable stage eventually. Chloe rolled her eyes, but typed anyway. Fine. I'll start off with Grandma's garden. Happy now? The whole family grinned chaos, but the productive kind. Episode 46, Game Night. Marcus slammed his backpack on the table, fuming. Some senior in my group project just tried to get into me in front of everyone, saying my ideas were garbage. Ethan didn't look up from his controller. Did you say anything back? I froze. I didn't know whether to stand up to him or just let it slide. Lucas leaned forward. Dude, you gotta stand by your work. We'll back up whatever you say in that meeting tomorrow. For real, Maya added. You don't have to fight, but you can't let people walk all over you either. We'll stick by you no matter what happens. Later that night, the group crashed on the couch for the basketball game, desperate for a distraction. Robert wandered in with a bowl of chips. Who are we cheering for tonight? Celtics, obviously, Chloe said, rolling her eyes like it was the dumbest question ever asked. Back in my day, we didn't just cheer, we baracked for our team like our lives depended on it, Robert said, settling into his chair. Okay, boomer, Chloe muttered, smirking. Marcus finally relaxed, laughing for the first time all day. Surrounded by people who actually had his back, the senior drama already felt smaller. Episode 47, Caught Red-Handed. Robert walked into the living room and froze. Lucas and Marcus were sprawled on the couch, controllers in hand, the TV blasting explosions. Weren't you two supposed to goof off later and finish that presentation first? We just needed a quick break, Mr. R, Marcus said, not even pausing the game. A quick break that's lasted 3 hours. Linda appeared behind Robert, arms crossed, the universal mom stance of doom. Lucas, I swear, if you don't stop messing about and get that slideshow done. We're not messing around, Mom, we're strategizing. Lucas protested weakly. That's when Linda really let loose. She didn't just tell him off, she full-on bawled him out, voice rising with every sentence about wasted potential and unfinished work. Robert jumped in too, laying into Marcus for distracting his son again. Marcus, sensing the temperature in the room, quietly powered down the controller. I think I'm gonna shoot through before this turns into a whole thing. He grabbed his backpack and slipped out the door before anyone could stop him. Lucas groaned, alone now with 2 very disappointed parents. Worth it. Chloe whispered from the staircase, smirking. Not even a little, Lucas muttered, opening his laptop at last. Episode 48, The Couch Session. Maya plopped down across from Lucas, notebook in hand like she was about to diagnose him on the spot. Okay, let's figure out why you've rewritten your intro 5 times instead of just finishing it. I don't know, I just can't work out how to start, Lucas mumbled. Let me suss out what's really going on here. Maya studied him for a second. I picked up on something earlier, you tense up every time deadlines come up. Does that relate to how your dad handles pressure? Lucas blinked. Okay, that's oddly specific. I base that on patterns, not magic, she said, smirking. You can't just account for procrastination by saying you're lazy. That's surface level. So what? Sum up for me. What's the actual problem? Maya leaned back. You draw on perfectionism as an excuse to avoid starting. You focus on making it flawless instead of just making it exist. Lucas groaned, falling back onto the couch cushions. Cool, so I'm just broken. No, Maya said, laughing. We can classify this as totally normal college student anxiety. She tapped her notebook. Let's arrive at a plan, 15 minutes, no editing, just right. She pointed out that he could always come back to polishing later, then go on to the next paragraph. I'll follow up on you tomorrow, she added, already heading for the door. Episode 49, The Weekend Trip. The plan was simple. Set out early Saturday morning, hit the lake, and start off the summer right. Naturally, Marcus complicated things within the first hour. I may have accidentally told my landlord I'd handle a leak today, he admitted, phone buzzing nonstop. I might have to shoot through before lunch. You are not pulling a do-a-runner on us again, Chloe said, pointing a marshmallow stick at him accusingly. You did that at game night too. That's different. This is an emergency. Lucas sighed. Fine, just break away from the group quietly, don't make a scene. Marcus saluted dramatically and disappeared toward the parking lot 10 minutes later. With one less person, the group decided to move on to the actual hike. Ethan, surprisingly enthusiastic for someone who hated sunlight, turned to Maya. Race you to the lookout point? By the time they reached the water, everyone was sweaty and desperate to wash up. Maya dunked her face right in. I need to freshen up before I combust. Later, as the sun dipped low, Lucas got into storytelling mode by the fire, voice low and dramatic. Marcus texted an hour later. Leaks fixed. I'll come back to the lake tomorrow. Save me a spot. Lucas just laughed and tossed another log on the fire. Episode 50, Big Brother Mode. Chloe slammed her bedroom door and flopped onto her bed, phone buzzing nonstop with group chat notifications. Lucas knocked once before barging in anyway. Okay, what happened? You've been weird all dinner. Some girls at school keep getting into me about my college list, she muttered. Like, since when is applying to a state school a crime? Lucas's jaw tightened. Did they actually lay into you, or just annoying comments? Basically bawled me out in the group chat for wasting potential. One of them straight up told me off for not applying to her dream school too. That's insane. You need to stand up to them, Chloe. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your choices. Easy for you to say. I mean it. I'll stand by you no matter what you pick. Mom and Dad will too. We'll stick by you even if you choose underwater basket weaving as a major. Chloe finally cracked a smile. Gross, but thanks. And if those girls try anything again, just know we'll back up every word you say. Lucas grinned. Consider us your personal hype squad, ready to cheer for you, barack for you, whatever it takes. Please never say hype squad again. Deal. Now break away from that group chat and come watch something dumb with me. She actually did. Episode 51, The LAN Party That Never Ends. Ethan had transformed his dorm room into a glowing cave of monitors and cables. Rule 1, he announced, no one goofs around with my settings. Rule 2, no one touches my snacks. So basically we can't have any fun, Marcus said, already reaching for the chip bowl just to annoy him. Lucas dropped onto the beanbag chair. I told my group project partner I'd only goof off for like 30 minutes, then get back to work. Sure you did, Chloe said via video call from her room, watching the chaos unfold on Lucas's webcam. You always say that and then disappear for 6 hours. 2 hours later, nobody had moved. Maya kept messing about with the in-game chat, trolling Marcus's team, while Ethan tried not to laugh and lose focus. Guys, stop messing around. We're literally about to win. By midnight, Marcus checked his phone and groaned. I told my roommate I'd be back an hour ago. I gotta shoot through. Don't do a runner on us mid-match. Ethan protested, but Marcus was already grabbing his shoes. Eventually, everyone crashed, sweaty and exhausted. I seriously need to wash up, Lucas mumbled, peeling himself off the beanbag. Same, Maya said, splashing water on her face in the tiny dorm bathroom, trying to freshen up before the walk home in the cold morning air. Episode 52, Group Project Meltdown. The app demo crashed for the 3rd time, and Marcus was done being calm about it. Ethan, what happened? You said this was ready. I said it was mostly ready, Ethan shot back, not backing down for once. You're the one who got into an argument with the investor before we even tested it. Don't lay into me right now, Marcus snapped. I'm trying to fix this. Lucas raised his hands. Okay, can we not turn this into a whole thing? We're a team. Easy for you to say. You barely showed up to half the meetings, Marcus said, suddenly turning on Lucas too, ready to bawl him out next. Whoa, don't tell me off for something Ethan already forgave me for, Lucas said, stunned. Maya, sensing the room was one sentence away from combustion, stepped in. Everyone needs to stand up to the actual problem, not each other. She looked at Marcus directly. The code crashed. Nobody did that on purpose. Marcus exhaled, rubbing his face. Sorry. I just panicked. Ethan, surprisingly soft for someone so logical, shrugged. We're not gonna break away over one bad demo. We'll fix it. Yeah, Lucas added. Whatever happens, we stick by each other. That's the deal. Marcus managed a tired smile. Okay, round 2. Episode 53, Capstone Crisis. Chloe sat surrounded by index cards, looking like she was preparing for war instead of a 10-minute presentation. I have 100 facts and zero idea how to bring them together. Robert sat down across from her, reading glasses pushed up on his head. Let's draw together the main points first. What's your thesis actually trying to say? That immigration policy in the 1920s relates to modern debates. I just can't sum up 3 decades of history in 10 minutes. You don't have to classify every single event, Robert said. Focus on the 3 biggest turning points. Base your argument on those. Chloe groaned, flipping through cards. But how do I account for all the side details without losing people? You point out the highlights, then go on to the next section. Simple as a circuit diagram. Robert grinned. See, this is just like wiring. Everything's gotta connect logically, or the whole thing shorts out. Please never compare my history thesis to electrical work again. No promises. He tapped one card. Draw on that newspaper quote you found earlier, it's strong. After an hour, they finally arrived at a clean outline. I'll come back to the conclusion tomorrow, Chloe said, exhausted but relieved. I'll follow up on you Thursday, Robert said. Practice run, no excuses. Chloe rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. Episode 54, The Router Whisperer. The Wi-Fi had been down for 2 days, and Robert was losing his mind. I can't figure out why it keeps dropping every 20 minutes. Ethan crouched by the router, plugging in his laptop. Let me work out what's happening here. He scanned the logs silently, eyes narrowing. Okay, I picked up on something. Your bandwidth usage spikes randomly at night. That's probably Chloe streaming, Robert muttered. Hey, Chloe yelled from the stairs. Don't get into me right now. I have homework open in, 12 tabs. Robert sighed. Can you just back up the current settings before we mess with anything? I don't want to lose the configuration again. Already on it, Ethan said, calm as ever. He turned to his laptop screen, fingers flying across the keyboard. This router can roughly account for 70% of your connection issues. It's outdated. Great, so I bought a fancy paperweight. Pretty much, Ethan said, deadpan, making Robert laugh despite himself. Lucas wandered in, drawn by the commotion. Need backup? I can stand by if you need extra hands. I'll stick by Ethan on this one, Robert said. You'd probably unplug the wrong cable. Rude, but fair. Ethan finally went on to reset the firmware, and within minutes, the Wi-Fi icon turned green. The whole house practically cheered.